Sorry about that, guys. Technical difficulties. Had to reboot the phone to get Instagram to work. So wait a few minutes to let other people kind of log on because I was a little bit behind today. Welcome. Sorry for the delay. Had a little technical difficulties with the iPhone here. Had to reboot. Also tried something new a little bit tonight. Playing around to see if I can kind of stream Clubhouse and Instagram Live at the same time. So we'll see if we get any questions off Clubhouse. And if they do, I'll repeat them for you guys on Instagram. So tonight, mostly just wanted to do a kind of open Ask Me Anything. We can talk about any cardiovascular concerns you guys have, questions, or we can talk about biohacking. So got the original pair of biohacking glasses I had back in 2017. So if you guys want to talk some circadian rhythm stuff, cold thermogenesis, whatever you want to talk about, we'll chat about it. But do have a few things to kind of review from last week. So hopefully you guys have gone over your circadian rhythm disruption, otherwise known as the spring forward of last Sunday. So I did do a video last week talking about how to kind of reset your circadian rhythm. So it's on my YouTube channel and my Instagram TV as well. So if you haven't watched that and need to learn how to reset your circadian rhythms the next time it rolls around in 6 months, give it a look. So, a couple of people did throw in some questions ahead of time. So while you guys are logging on and thinking about what everyone asked me, just drop them in the comments. But I had a question for somebody asking about ankle swelling and also diastolic blood pressure. So ankle swelling can be caused by numerous things. I'd say kind of worst case scenario would be due to congestive heart failure, either systolic heart failure or diastolic heart failure. So the heart is a pump, so it uses energy to relax and it uses energy to contract. And what causes it? Many times the systolic heart failure is due to ischemia or lack of blood flow to the heart. The heart doesn't have enough nutrients or oxygen to actually contract, and the heart gets weak and starts dilating out and looks like a bag of worms, just kind of pumping blood inefficiently. Then you're just not pumping blood effectively through the system, and fluid can swell up in your legs. Diastolic heart failure is more where the heart doesn't relax well. So you hear me frequently talk about mitochondria. The organelles that make energy in your cells is one of the things they do. The heart is about 1/3 mitochondria. And so if your mitochondria don't make enough energy for you, you have a brownout, and the heart can't squeeze as well, and you can't relax as well. And actually, diastolic function, or the relaxation, takes more energy than the squeezing part. So diastolic heart failure is becoming more prevalent. So you could have diastolic heart failure that could contribute to it. But the other things could be, venous insufficiency. So you have veins that are supposed to pump the blood up back to your heart. If the veins, they have different valves in them. If the valves are becoming incompetent, then with gravity, blood just starts, tracking back down. So if you have bulging veins, spider veins in your legs, could be venous insufficiency as a driver. So if your legs ache or getting swollen, that are fine during the day, or I should say swell up, throughout the day. You lay down with your legs propped up in the gravity, then and it improves the swelling. Potentially it's venous insufficiency. First line treatment is usually very conservative, just wear compression stockings and elevate your legs as possible. Had somebody ask a question about inflammation, oxidation. So those are two of the things that drive cardiovascular disease, the other one being autoimmune dysregulation. So they were asking more about heavy metal testing and such. So I don't currently offer that in my office at Apollo Cardiology, and exploring the idea. Just don't have enough patient demand to really get into it. But heavy metals are ubiquitous in the environment. Lead and mercury probably the two biggest ones that can cause some cardiovascular concerns. Especially high mercury can cause elevated blood pressure. So ways to get tested. There are special urine tests that you can get done to look at your 24-hour excretion of the heavy metals. A lot of those things are not just in your blood, it's in your bones and in your tissues, and it takes a while for it to kind of slowly work its way out of your system. And so it's better to redox before you detox. So build up your mitochondrial function, build up the batteries, good sunlight, and then your body should be able to detox better. Without knowing somebody's full story, I can't prescribe your full-on detox profile, but sweating in a sauna would be very beneficial. That's one of the treatments for heavy metal toxicity. I've done a video on sauna therapy previously. It's on my one website called redlightdoc.com. And I have other videos about photobiomodulation, red light therapy there that talks about how saunas are beneficial from a cardiovascular standpoint. But heavy metal toxicity, detoxing would be beneficial with that as well. They also have questions about gut health and oral health. So take the oral health first. So there is an oral systemic connection. So if you have really bad teeth, you have infections in your gum line, have periodontal disease, those infections, cause your immune system to turn on. There's fire in your mouth. Your arteries are going to be carrying these things to fight the infection. Your arteries start getting damaged as the kind of innocent bystanders. So whatever's going on in your mouth can directly affect what's going on in your heart arteries. So if you haven't seen your dentist in a while, and with COVID, not everybody's up to date, make sure your teeth are, good to go. If you have high inflammatory markers on your blood work, or you have a history of vascular disease, just make sure that the teeth are doing well. Gut health, I'm not a gut health expert. Your gut is your, interface to the outside, literally. So if your gut is not healthy, it's something in your environment is breaking it. So you're more bacteria than you are human. So it's not as simple as good bacteria or bad bacteria, but the circadian principles I've always teach you guys. The timing of the light that enters your eyes hit your skin is also important to hit your abdomen. That way the bags in your gut know what time of day it is. So if your abdomen never sees the sun, you're going to have a problem with probably your gut flora. The timing that you're bringing the nutrients in as well. So this is just excluding you're eating a standard American crap diet. If you're eating quote healthy foods, try not to eat 3 to 4 hours before bedtime so that the body has time to switch off the liver and gut clock. One that I do sometimes I check, at least from a cardiovascular standpoint, is the test called TMAO or trimethylamine oxide. It's a novel risk factor for cardiovascular disease, has some effect on HDL functionality, but there's debate on what you should do if you have a high TMAO. If you're supplementing with carnitine as a supplement and your levels are high, that's the first thing is stop the supplemental carnitine and see if it goes back down. There's debate should you be putting people on probiotics. Probiotics are basically seeds, but they're not going to keep the flora healthy long term if you're not doing the right epigenetic or environmental things to keep those bacteria healthy. But if you have high TMAO, generally means a marker of poor gut health, and go looking in how to improve that. Somebody who was new follower was asking about cholesterol and heart disease. I've done many videos on lipids 101, 102, and advanced lipids with LPA. All those videos are available on my Instagram, TV, and YouTube channels. That's what I do in my day job at Apollo Cardiology is, assess people's cardiovascular risk for heart attack and strokes, and use my advanced lipid testing from different companies to look at ApoB-containing particles and LDL particles that really predict the risk. It's not the LDL cholesterol, LDL-C, that really predicts risk. And, LDL-C is a passenger. You want to know the carriers, the particle number. That's more important. But ApoB-containing particles, when they're high, there's just more risk that they're banging into the arteries and dropping off their passengers into the walls of the artery. This person, I believe, had LDL-C around 200. Sometimes that can be a marker of familial hyperlipidemia or having a genetic abnormality where the cholesterol is either overproduced, it's not recycled well, or your gut keeps reabsorbing it. So it's kind of usually one of 3 issues. And with testing, you can usually figure out which one it is. Statins are tools. I think this person was a little bit concerned about some of the potential side effects of statins. Anything you put in your body, including light, food, can have side effects. So, risk versus benefit on anything. So if you already had a heart attack, stents, bypass, stroke, statins are tools that help you reduce the risk of having second events. If you've never had those events, you're a younger person and your numbers are quote just high, look to see if you have inflammation, do you have high oxidation, do you have something else going on that could be driving your cholesterol high? If you have an infection, your cholesterol is going to be high. So there's many things that you can take a look at to figure out, is statins quote right for you? Typically in my office, I offer carotid interval medial thickness scans that look at your vascular age. If your arteries are aging faster than your biologic age, maybe you want to consider statin to cool down the inflammation in the artery and try to get the arteries to reverse age. If you have a high CT coronary calcium score, or you're putting plaque down in your heart arteries, again, higher the score, higher the risk. If you have a calcium score over 400, should really have a conversation with your doctor, if statins would help reduce your risk of having a heart attack or stroke. And then something I was reading up on last week and watched a webinar. It's an interesting product called Arterial Still. It's a product that helps the glucocalyx, which is basically the finger-like projections that sit on top of the endothelium. So I've talked about the endothelium before. The endothelium is that inner lining of your blood vessels. Your inner lining of your blood vessels is 1 cell thick, and if you took out all the endothelium in your arteries, it's reported to be about the surface area of 6 tennis courts. So it's one of your largest secretory organs, if not the largest. And the big thing from a cardiovascular standpoint it does is it releases nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a gas that dilates your blood vessels, prevents stuff from sticking to it. So again, cholesterol is not an issue unless the arteries are scratched up from inflammation, oxidation, autoimmune dysregulation, arteries getting scratched up. Cholesterol is actually a repair substance to try to patch the damage. And if you keep inflaming the arteries, the cholesterol is not getting damaged, and now it's starting to, more likely to get trapped in a damaged wall artery. So if the wall's like Teflon and things are just sliding through smooth, good to go. If not, more likely, ApoB containing particles are going to drop off their payload into the walls of the artery. And you can assess, how healthy those arteries are with a couple different tests. Your nitric oxide level is going to be measured with test strips. There's a company called Human with an extra N that makes the test strips. I've talked about those before. The endopat test. The endopat test is a 15-minute non-invasive test that tells you how much, by percentage-wise, your arteries can dilate. Ideally, it should be at least 1.68 or 168% over baseline. If it does, good. If not, your arteries aren't making enough nitric oxide. You got to dig in why that's not happening so well. But this new product is interesting that it kind of feeds the things that are on top of the endothelium. And these little finger-like projections, when they get damaged, they also have an effect on how much nitric oxide gets released. And this shows that these things will kind of regrow with this product. It has some different kind of greens and reds and other type of food-based substances in it that help this glucocalyx repair itself. But you can also know if it's improving. One of the persons that I routinely follow online uses a device called the Max Pulse. I also have one in my office in St. Louis that measures arterial elasticity, so how stiff are your arteries. So persons always talk about the diastolic blood pressure, the bottom number. That's a marker of how stiff the arteries are. The issue is that if your arteries are stiff, the blood goes through them real fast and kind of reflects back quickly. And that is a marker that the arteries aren't releasing nitric oxide very well. If your arteries act more like an accordion, expand and contract well, you have elastic arteries, you're much less likely to be laying down new plaque in the arteries. Or if you already have plaque, you're less likely to continue to do that. You might be actually halting it and potentially reversing it. So those are all the kind of pre-written questions I have. And also for those that are joining, thank you. Also going to be doing some streaming on Clubhouse. It's an interesting social media app if you haven't played around with it or haven't had an invite yet on it. It's iPhone only. Many times there's interesting kind of chat rooms with different experts talking about, I'm always interested in biohacking, heart health, so you can jump in these rooms and the experts kind of, go at it, just asking questions of each other, and you could be a fly on the wall and learn from them. So interesting platform if you haven't checked it out. Right now I'm more of a lurker. I've done one live Clubhouse with Amanda, one of my friends, and somebody I've gone on previous health retreats with, and we've talked about heart health and biohacking, and so I'll probably do those as well intermittently on Clubhouse. There's another doctor that's interested in having me on his Clubhouse show pretty soon. So I know somebody asked me a question previously about 75 hard. So 75 hard's going well. I'm on day 29 of 75. I completed 75 hard one other time, and then do the phase 1, 2, 3, so the Live Hard program. I'm not sure yet if I'm committed to doing the full Live Hard program this calendar year, but I definitely will finish 75 hard. So for those that don't know 75 hard, it's a program created by Andy Frisella, the founder of First Form and Supplement Superstore. He's did it more as a mental conditioning program than a physical program. It has 5 things that you have to do every day. If you mess up one of these things, you go back to day 1. So you don't want to mess up. And so yes, you will get a physical benefit out of it, but it's definitely something that I do for mental clarity and when I need to really get focused on what I want to do for my health, but also for Apollo Cardiology and my future growth for the practice, which I have some very interesting things coming up in the next few months for the practice. I want to be as clear as possible, so this program really helps put me in that frame of reference. So 5 things you got to do daily. You got to drink a gallon of water. So basically say start early and be done early so you're not up in the middle of the night. So what I do, I have a half-gallon jug, a steel jug filled up with Mountain Valley spring water that I get delivered to my house, drag that around to work, and then throughout the day, sip on that one, and when I get home, drink a couple more glasses, and usually done by 6, 7 o'clock with the gallon of water. Got to read 10 pages of a self-help book, something that's going to improve either your kind of well-being, your leadership skills, your speaking skills, something that pushes you forward, not something just for fun. You have to exercise twice a day, 45-minute sessions. No prescription of what that exercise has to be. Mine currently is a AM kind of hike, and then before work, and then afternoon is generally some X3 bar, some push-ups, and then either some zone 2 riding on the Peloton or interval riding on the Peloton. You have to follow a diet, following a paleo diet, which is not that unusual for me, but really being very clean with your diet. So the diet does not specify what you have to eat, but you got to lay out the diet before you start the 75-hour program and stick to it. There's no deviation. There's no cheat days, no cheat meals. You grab a handful of something you weren't supposed to eat, you go back to day one. So I'm basically doing paleo, no snacks, no desserts, no chocolate, not even dark chocolate, my favorite. And the other big thing with it is no alcohol. So not a teetotaler by any means, but alcohol has an effect on your sleep quality and also has an effect on just your mental clarity. And so if you're really trying to get stuff done, alcohol really just can't be in the system at this time. And then the fifth thing is you got to take a picture every day of kind of your progress, so a selfie, and to see how things are improving. So sometimes people think, well, that's pretty easy, but you'd be surprised at how many people will mess up just that part. They forget to do it, and they've done all the harder stuff, and they forget following simple directions. So part of it's just a gut check. Can you follow instructions and get stuff done every day and not mess up? So those are the 5 steps to 75 hard. So I said I'm day 29 of 75, and when I finish 75 days, I'll end up back in Mexico, soak up some more sun, and recuperate from it. So, all right. So welcome to everybody else who's joining. All right, I did see a question here. Somebody's asking about how to build your solar callus safely to get back out in the sunshine. So the solar callus is something that Dr. Jack Cruz talks about. He has a very long, detailed blog on his website. So Dr. Jack Cruz, I think it's just drjackcruz.com. I think it's his website. If you just put in the Google box, you'll find it. Just like Jack Cruz, Kruse, solar callus, and it'll lay it all out. But essentially, much like your hands get calluses if you lift weights, your skin is able to absorb sunlight, better after you kind of precondition it. So I would say, unfortunately, too many people in the Midwest, where I'm at currently, they're hunkered down in the wintertime. They barely get outside at all. And then, the first day that it's sunny in St. Louis, or if, they were able to escape St. Louis and get further south, they run outside and they get zapped by the sun because their skin is not ready for it. So you do have to build it up over a couple weeks. It's not that hard, but just remember, like, red light builds and red light is regenerative. So if you have a photobiomodulation panel, you can pre-treat your skin before and after kind of midday exposure, or do Mother Nature's way is go outside after sunrise. There is no UVA, no UVB, so your skin is not going to get burnt at that time of day. You get the reset of your circadian rhythms with different wavelengths of light, but the red light that's always present when the sun is up hits your skin, preconditions it, so that when UV comes out later that day, you're able to absorb it better, and you're not as likely to burn. So everybody's skin type is different. It's called the Fitzpatrick skin type. So you'll know if your skin is, if you guys have 5 minutes, you turn crispy red, you have very poor solar callus at that point, and maybe your omega-6, omega-3 ratio is often going to have to get that checked. Your vitamin D is probably also like 15 or something. So, that just goes along with, lack of solar exposure. So start slow, build your way up. I always recommend the free app called D-Minder Pro that just tells you what time of day UV is available in your environment. You can actually put in your kind of Fitzpatrick type, how much skin is actually exposed. Is it just your face and hands? Okay, well, then it's like 10-15% of your body, or show it off, and skin's a solar panel, so more skin exposed, more absorption of the red spectrums. The skin's ready for when UV comes out. I can tell you from just personal experience doing it for the past 2 years, every time I go down to Mexico or Cancun or like Puerto Rico, is see the sunrise, typically take the shirt off, soak up 20, 30 minutes of sunrise in the morning time, go eat breakfast, usually something seafood laden, then go out for the UV part of the day. And then once I, feel like I got my fill of sun, just hide back in the shade. So I don't slather on sunscreen. If you wouldn't eat it or drink it, you shouldn't be putting it on your skin because it can be absorbed in your bloodstream. So, ideally, put on a hat, put on long sleeve shirts, and just hide in the shade if you have, had your fill of the sun. So let's see. Ms. Jarvis joined. I actually answered your questions earlier, so I think I answered in the 10-minute mark about gut health, oral systemic health, and heavy metals. All right. Got a question about cholesterol testing. What time of day fasted? Can the numbers be influenced? What is the best way to test to get the most accurate picture of cholesterol? So cholesterol is something that is not a static number. You don't have a cholesterol number. What's in your blood is a snapshot in time. Cholesterol is going in and out of cells. It's called flux. At this time, there's no commercial way to measure the flux or what's going on, how fast the cholesterol is leaving the system. What time of day? I don't have a time of day that I say everybody must do it, but I just, conventionally just recommend people generally do it in the morning time. I don't always get fasting lipid panels. The main reason I would get a fasting lipid panel is if I want to look at your fasting triglyceride level to see is it a marker of how well your insulin sensitivity is. But I will frequently also be checking your fasting insulin level. So most of the time I do it fasting, but if you don't do it fasting, that's not the biggest deal. You just got to let somebody know so that they can interpret it that way. I've listened to many podcasts by David Feldman. He has a energy lipid hypothesis, and at this point, it's still just that hypothesis. No really big name preventive, cardiologists or docs are really on board with his hypothesis. It's very interesting. I know there's some thought that they're going to do some CT coronary angiogram, so a more definitive test than a CT coronary calcium score. Frequently I get people saying like, well, I have high cholesterol and my calcium score is 0. I'm like, well, that's good, but calcium in your artery is a late stage finding. It doesn't tell you. If you have soft plaque building up in the coronary arteries. So you would need a CT coronary angiogram that requires an IV and contrast to be able to know the thickness of the wall of the coronary arteries and if you're laying plaque down in the arteries. So if they can show that, then maybe they'll have something to kind of show that these high lipid levels really don't matter as much. I know he was interviewed on Dr. Peter Attia's The Drive podcast a year or two ago, and Peter Attia really kind of picked him apart on a lot of his claims. So at this point, I think it's an interesting hypothesis, but not something I really go by. And what's the best accurate way to get a picture of cholesterol? Need to do particle testing, so definitely look at your ApoB, and then I still will do an NMR ion mobility testing, so looking at LDL particle number, small LDL particle number, and HDL particle number. In your traditional panel, really only look at your triglyceride and your HDL-C. So question, a couple of weeks ago I had mentioned getting 40 grams of protein in the morning. Is my recommendation 40 grams of protein in the morning for women as well as men, or do women need less? Great question. It's actually based off your blood volume and not on your actual body weight. So yes, everybody needs 40 to 45 grams of protein in the morning time to help initiate muscle protein synthesis or building more muscle. It's the amino acids that your body actually needs. And if you're actually trying to put on more muscle, you may need up to 1 gram per pound of body weight. So in that way, you would actually, potentially you would need less overall protein, but the load is important. And typically it's about 30 grams of protein to trigger muscle protein synthesis. So somebody's asking about the product I recommended to increase nitric oxide production. So a couple things that I've talked about before. One is Neo 40. Neo 40 is a specially formulated lozenge that dissolves in the mouth, and it helps make nitric oxide in 2 different ways. It helps your body recouple an enzyme that actually will start allowing your body to make its own nitric oxide, but it also has L-arginine and inorganic nitrates in it, so it will actually make nitric oxide while it's dissolving. So that has a lot of data. One of my mentors, Dr. Mark Houston, did a lot of study on Neo 40 for that. But the new product is called Arterial Still. I have information of it in my office, but it's something that helps basically regrow the glucocalyx. The glucocalyx is something that I think the majority of even the preventive cardiologists have never actually heard of until the past maybe year or so. But it's something that if you look at it under the electron microscope, it looks like little hair sitting on the outside of the endothelium. Sometimes if it's kind of like those things are all broken, then the endothelium underneath it isn't going to work well. So if you regrow the hair, the glucocalyx, the underlying forest might actually start working. So I only have 1 patient currently taking it. I haven't had enough experience with it to have a baseline of something with either an endopat or a max pulse that looks at arterial elasticity, or looking at a carotid scan or calcium score to say, okay, this is your artery health today. Do a 6-month trial of Arterial Cell and see does something improve with your nitric oxide production. But that's something we start doing in the office. Somebody's asking, do I do out-of-state telehealth consults? So I am definitely in the telemedicine business. Apollo Cardiology launched in August of 2019, and from day one we were telemedicine enabled. So when COVID hit, it was no big deal to flip the switch and go 100% telemed. There's a little bit difference. It depends on what state you're located that I actually prescribe certain medications. If you're in a state that I don't currently have a license, then it's more of a kind of second opinion education consult. Potentially have you do labs with your primary care doctor, and then I would review whatever you have and kind of give you an idea of how to optimize your lifestyle and potentially supplements. But maybe I'm not prescribing something, or if I'll say, if you really need a prescription, I'll say, okay, this is what I'd recommend of the choices, and then talk to your local docs about actually prescribing it. If you're interested in doing that, just send me a direct message, or you can call my office in St. Louis. It's 314-635-9028. And it's apollocardiology.com. Will work too. Well, I think I got the majority of the questions answered already. And yeah, I'm playing around with Clubhouse. I saw Cassie pop in there for a minute. I'll just keep throwing that out there as well, just to see if I can pick up some of the body on the Clubhouse that will answer questions. So I think somebody's. All right. So, are there any other questions coming in this evening? All right. So appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. So for those that haven't previously seen me, I'm Dr. Michael Twyman. I'm a board certified cardiologist located in St. Louis, but I do telemedicine with people in 50 states and as well as around the world, and really try to help people get to the root cause of any of the cardiovascular concerns. And my main focus is on preventing heart attacks and strokes. So if you're interested in that type of work, come follow me online, send me a message, and I'm always happy to work with new clients. I'll be back next Monday night, 6 o'clock Central Time, and topic to be determined. If you have an interesting topic that you want me to discuss, just drop it in the comments or send me a message and we'll try to hit your topic sometime. So thanks for everybody for joining in, and I'll see you guys next week.